Welcome to the Sample Chapter Podcast, the show where authors read a sample chapter from one of their books. Here's your host, Jason A. Meiske.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 67 of the Sample Chapter Podcast. Jason A. Meiske here. And what a wonderful, wonderful conversation I've got with urban contemporary fantasy author Muse, coming up in just a few minutes, and it is so much fun. And I say that not only because he writes amazing stories, but also because, and I've been trying a long time to get him on here, so I'm very, very excited that we finally got him pinned down, and you are in for a great conversation and a very exciting chapter, if I do say so myself. So stay tuned, just a few minutes away from that interview, but first, let me extend the happiest of wishes to all of you mothers out there listening to the show. Happy belated Mother's Day. I hope your weekend was a good one. I hope you got a chance to be with your loved ones and that you got to hear from them, at least if you didn't get to see them. I made a special trip over the weekend to go up and see my mother because I knew Sunday I was going to be preoccupied. I had to go to my nephew's graduation. Oh my gosh, why have graduation on Mother's Day? Oh my gosh, it apparently that happened a lot. You know what? I'm not going to get on a soapbox. We're not going to talk about that. But point being, I knew I was going to be busy on Mother's Day, so I made a trip up to see her on Saturday, and it was a really great time. And I was just really, really happy to see her. So, not that my mom listens, but if she ever does hear this episode, to my mother, happy Mother's Day again, and I love you, Mom. I hope all of you listening did reach out to your mothers. If you can, make sure that you do so. Even if you're hearing this episode months down the road, it could be August when you catch this episode, because all of our shows are still in there and you can listen to them anytime. So if you're hearing this episode for the first time and it's months down the road and you haven't talked to your mom in a while, take an opportunity to pick up the phone after you get done with this and go ahead and give her a call and remind her that you're thinking of her and that you love her, because moms are important. We should celebrate them every day of the year, not just one time. Anyway, like I said, my weekend was pretty busy. It's not just the weekend, but the last 2 weeks has just been brutal. I said last week I finally got to start doing some editing, which lasted about a day, and then my day job turned into 12-hour days and full nights at home. Just so much stuff going on, and I haven't done any work since last week on my story, but it's finally going to be letting up this week, so I'm looking forward to diving in, and we'll see. It's hoping for the best that I can meet my personal deadline of June to have this book ready, and you'll be the first to know if it's going to make it. But either way, I'll make sure and let you all know when my new book is ready. The good thing is, though, is the YouTube channel is up and is working well. It's automatically updating my new episodes when they come out. So if you're following us on iTunes, if you're downloading it automatically like I do with podcasts, that's wonderful. I really appreciate you doing that. But make sure you go over and check out the YouTube channel, because as I've said before, that's where I think it's a very magical time, because you can see what the book cover is. For every one of these episodes, you can go in and see what the book cover was for that author, the story that they read. And, I tell you what, there are some amazing book covers. And so, you don't want to miss out. Also on the YouTube channel, there's off to the side, you can see other shows that we follow, shows that we recommend. Some of them are previous guests who have their own podcasts or YouTube channels, and you can see some of those on there. We're still going through and adding more as time presents itself. But, some of them that you can catch on there also are friends of the show, friends that we're part of their network, which is, of course, Pop Goes the Culture. And you can click on that link, so that way it's really easy to go in and see what their shows are like. They feature shows just like the title of the network, Pop Goes the Culture. There's also the Alamo Backlot that I really enjoy, and Some really cool guys over at Back in Time podcast, and just really really cool wealth of shows at the website. So start there at YouTube. You can check out Pop Culture, follow their links, and or you can just click on the link at the end of this episode and go straight to their website, and you can see all of those. I also want to give a great big thank you to our longtime sponsor, U-Stor-All. They are number one in self-storage in the Warrensburg area. I've been talking for, oh my gosh, almost a year now about the upgrades they've been doing at their satellite facility on the south side of town, and those are just about complete. They tore down a small building that they had and have in its place put up two massive climate control buildings. One of them is already open. The new building is going to be open in just a couple weeks as of this recording. So make sure you check them out online at U-Stor-All.net. That is the letter U, STORALL.net. Lots of wonderful things. Like I said, it's climate control, which is true climate control, air conditioning, heating, and dehumidification. Computerized locks on the doors, on the gate out front, because it's completely fenced in. Getting ready to install 15 more cameras, I believe is what the manager was telling me. So that's going to bring them up to over 60 cameras, close to 70 cameras, I think, between the two facilities. Awesome stuff. If you want to make sure your goods are still where you left them when you come back, make sure you check out U-Stor-All. I also want to thank our other big sponsor, Scrivener. They have amazing writing software. I highly recommend it. As you've heard me talk about before, I use not only their desktop, which is I have downloaded on my desktop computer. I have it downloaded to my laptop, the desktop version. Both of those are linked with a cloud service, and it's anywhere I want to. Anytime I want to pick it up, right there is where I left off. I also have their Scrivener app for my phone, so that way anytime if I'm at the movies, like when I finished my latest book, I can open it up there, and again, it just opens up right where I left off, so that way I can continue. Awesome stuff. You're going to hear a great ad for them here real soon where let's face it, I say it's great because I did it. But namely, what you don't want to miss in that ad is the special coupon code that you can use if you're interested in getting the Scrivener software for yourself. If you're an author looking for a way to really organize your stuff, to really get your story down, oh man, you've got to try this stuff out. So listen in for the commercial and hear that special coupon code. Last year, I got to talk a little bit about the Writers of Warrensburg, the special group that I'm in, the writers group that I'm in here in the Warrensburg area. We did a workshop. We do one each year. We have another one coming up June 8th. It's the second Saturday of June this year. And like I said, we're going to be doing another one. This is our, oh my gosh, fourth? Yeah, this is our fourth annual. So it's going to be a really great time. I'm very humbled in that they've asked me to come and I'm going to be one of their speakers this year. I'm going to be doing a presentation on podcasting as an author, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of really, really great and very talented authors, much more talented than I am, doing presentations on the real work, of writing and such. And it's going to be a really good time. Afterwards, we head over to Reader's World. We're going to be doing a book signing over there. So if you're interested in attending the workshop and then coming over to the book signing, either or both, I don't have a specific way for you to look it up yet. I will get something posted as soon as I can. But if you're interested in coming to the Warrensburg area June 8th, reach out to us at samplechapterpodcast@gmail.com, and I will hook you up with information of how to get signed up for that. Okay, there is a fee for it, but that's going to cover your full day and a lunch, and I promise you it's going to be a fun time. But spots are filling up fast, so reach out to me, let me know if you're interested, and we'll get you there. You're going to hear my guest today, SM Muse. He and I talk about it because actually that's where I met Mr. Muse a couple years ago. I think it was at the inaugural one, the very first one that we did 4 years ago now. Wow. And that's where we first met. That's where I first heard about his books. His first in a series, Gathering Darkness, is where I picked up a copy of that and got to read it. We've been friends ever since, talking a lot, and I've been trying to get him on here. Mr. Muse and I, we have a great discussion on things like, well, there's a recurring theme with him and other authors that I've had in the past where you started writing. He actually wrote a book back in the late 80s, early 90s, and it did well, but unfortunately life got in the way, and he had to put writing aside for a spell. Picked it back up about 6 years ago or so, and now he's back into it, and he's doing really well. We talk about that. We talk about advice that he got from Frank L. Hubbard when he met him. Great stuff. He's got some great books coming out. The first 2 books of his Summer People series have already been released. The first one back in, I think it was January. Second book just came out here at the end of April. And third in this series is coming out sometime in June. He hasn't quite nailed down the date for it yet. So as soon as we know something, we'll let you know. As always, I kind of ramble on a little bit much so here at the beginning. So I'm going to cut myself off and go back and edit some of this out so that way I don't ramble so much. And let's get this on over to our interview with SM Muse right after a word from our sponsor. Jason here. Hey, I wanted to take a moment and tell you about my favorite writing tool, Scrivener. Now, I know you've heard about Scrivener because their writing software has been embraced by hundreds of thousands of other writers like you and I, from the novice to best-selling novelists. The reason we all use it is because of Scrivener's core concept to bring all the writing tools you use together in a single application. And with tools like automatic backup, character maps, project goals, and let's not forget that amazing corkboard, you can see why I use Scrivener every day. As a bonus for Sample Chapter Podcast listeners, use code CHAPTER for 20% off your desktop version. Scrivener writing software, built by writers for writers. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Sample Chapter Podcast. This week, I've got another very special guest, and I say that about a lot of authors that I have on the show, and it's true. They're all very special to me. But this week is special because it's another author that I do know and that I've known for some time now. But it's funny that we've been this long of a time, and when we've yet to be able to connect to get on the show. But today, I finally roped him in and got him on the show. It is urban, contemporary, and fantasy author SM Muse. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jason. I appreciate it. I know half that of not connecting is me ducking out on you from time to time, but you got me cornered at the signing last week, so thank you for that.
It's my pleasure. I knew I was going to get a chance to. I was tempted to bring my equipment and be like, okay, we're going to do it right here with the crowd around us, and like, no, hold on, people, you're not buying this book right now. We're doing an interview. So.
We should have done that. I think that they would have enjoyed that. We'd had a lot of fans there, so because it was a very good showing.
That might have been fun. I might have to do that sometime and just get a bunch of authors together and everybody read little snippets of their book or something.
Yep, that would be great. Yep.
Well, go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, like I said, SM Muse, I've been writing for a long time. I've been writing since, oh my gosh, I was real little. I've been a reader more than I've been a writer. Always been an avid reader. Comic books were my fascination. I would tie a towel around my neck and and of course, then I started picking up some books and started reading along the lines of that, which was kind of amazing because up to that time, I read a lot of scientific stuff, like how to build rocket motors, stuff like that. A story I was talking about that's kind of funny is I think I remember this was probably been in 4th or 5th grade, and you get to go to the library, and to me that was the magic place, right? Go to the library and all these books, there's all this knowledge and all these amazing stories out there to read. And then getting called, actually I called into the head librarian's office with my teacher because I was checking out 2 books at a time, and they actually grilled me. One was on rocket propulsion, I remember that, and the other one was a fantasy book. I don't remember the title of it. It could have been Lloyd Alexander's The Black Cauldron or something like that. But they sat there and they said, why are you checking out these 2 books? And I'm like, because I like reading. And I like writing. And they were like, well, it just something doesn't seem right. It's actually grilled me. They took each book and said, okay, chapter 2, it's talking about this, blah, 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 and everything, and answered the questions. And I remember afterwards thinking, that's weird. I almost got in trouble for wanting to read books. I don't quite understand that. But no, since then, at that time, it just increased there. I fell in love with Stephen King. I met Frank Herbert when I was in high school, which was absolutely, totally amazing. And he's the one that really turned me on to the whole writing thing, because he asked me that question when I met him. Of course, he's the author of Dune. He sat there and he asked me, do you write? And I said, I don't. And he goes, well, why don't you? And at that point there, I asked myself, well, why don't I write? So I've been writing ever since.
Oh my gosh, that is so awesome. You get advice from Stephen King. You could do much worse. So I mean, you got to listen to what he's saying, right?
That's right. That's right. And same thing with Frank Herbert. Anytime you can get advice from those two guys there, it's a good thing.
Oh my gosh. So now, did they give you any ideas, or where do these ideas that you write about come from?
A lot of these ideas, I always sit there and say, a lot of times I just, I have dreams, and out of these dreams come these stories. These characters, mainly it's the characters that appear first. The storyline is always secondary compared to the characters. Always people, of course, author to author, it doesn't sound so crazy, right? When we sit there and say the characters tell us what's going on, and we're just like scribes running along beside them and trying to write it all down as fast as we possibly can. But that's the way it appears. That's the way it happens a lot of times. So it usually begins with a character. And from there, the story just develops around them. I don't plot anything out. I don't make a lot of notes anywhere, which comes back to haunt you sometimes when you go back and re-edit the books and you try to tie it all together, of course. But the characters will kind of, you work them into situations, they'll work themselves out and find their own solutions, and sometimes amaze you. I remember making notes when I used to write everything. I type everything on a laptop now, but when I used to write everything and my margins a lot, there'd be notes like, why did they say this? Or what brother are they talking about? And it's kind of cool how they take on a life of their own.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, and your first book was that was called Best of the Midwest, is that right?
Yep, Best of the Midwest. It was an anthology. It was put out, probably in the 80s. And that was my first book signing I've chatted with you about. And it was actually straight horror. At that time, I really wanted my fantasy stuff to step out, but I had a lot of people clamoring for the horror side of me. So even though they sat there and they go like, I can't believe you'd write something like that. I remember thinking like, my parents can never read this stuff, right? So, but yeah, that was my very first foray. And after that, I stepped out and didn't do anything except raise kids and a family until about 2011. That's when Era of Nostalgia came out, The Gathering Darkness, the very first one of that urban contemporary fantasy series.
Yeah. Now this was amazing to me, because you're a Missouri, Kansas guy, and you're writing about New York and foreign countries as well. And as somebody who read Era of Nostalgia, I was really surprised with the feel. Like it felt like I was in some of those, like some of the gutters and the area of New York. So have you been there?
Now that's the funny thing. Up to that point, no, I have never. I had probably never even left the state of Missouri up to that point. But the internet is a wonderful thing. I remember sitting there going down and doing that little map. You can drop the guy in Google Maps and take a look around and stuff like that, and wanting it to feel so authentic that I just researched and read, and then pretty soon it all starts coming together in your mind. And then luckily, my wife and I, we direct junior high, senior high camps, and we took 55 kids on what we call a historic caravan, which actually took us to New York and around the Statue of Liberty. I'd miss out on Central Park, gosh darn it. I'd love to actually visit, because that's a big, huge scene in my book.
Yes.
Yeah, getting there. But I remember walking those streets going like, man, this is a God thing, because there's just absolutely no way that it just seems just like, man, I did write it sitting here, so that's really cool. And I take it as a compliment. Thank you very much. Like I said, for having never been there, that's great. And of course, I haven't ever left the continent of the United States. So when I'm over in Britain, who knows?
Yeah, it definitely captured the feel of New York, and then your scenes for Europe. But I mean, it certainly had that feel as well. and very, very cool stuff. Tell us a little bit about Air of Nostalgia. Like, what is this story?
Air Nostalgia, it all started out, I remember sitting there, it's like I said, it's one of those dreams, and I can't remember exactly. It used to be that, like, in the very first chapter, I think it's not even included in the book anymore, but it's like on November 17th, just a few weeks before Christmas, Philip would meet his father very, very first time and never even realize it. I remember sitting there thinking, with just that one little sentence right there, that was where the story developed from, because I started asking myself, why is he, first of all, he's wandering the streets of New York. Why is he wandering the streets of New York? And why hasn't he met his father? Why would he have not ever met him before? And from there, the story developed at that point there. All of a sudden he's in search for his father, who he ends up meeting, but doesn't realize that's his son. And then the story just develops from there. You start finding about all these, this darker conspiracy, I guess you could sit there and say, that's trying to keep him separated. You're not getting anything away, but you realize that he's actually come forward. His father put himself in self-imposed exile for 400 years into the future, and just wandered around the streets of New York with amnesia. And so from there, the story just took off and went crazy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was definitely out there, but at the same time, like, I couldn't put it down either. It really was riveting, and especially I think the last half of it, I was just nonstop, like up till late at night, trying to finish as much as I could. So it was a very well done book, and I highly recommend everybody go out there and pick up a copy of this. And it continues into, you got the other books in the series, Kalen's Tale and The Gathering Darkness are all, now they're not exactly sequels, they're like other parts of the story. Would that be a good way to put it?
That would be a good way to put it. Kalen's Tale kind of started, Kalen becomes a main character as Theo's fiance, and she goes off on an adventure of her own that really ties in with the entire storyline. I remember writing it off to the side thinking it's going to be like book 2.5, but it really became book 2. And then the third, the actual sequel, the wrap up, 97% of it is complete. I've re-edited a lot of it, tightened up the storyline, and hopefully that's coming out before the end of this year, so I can wrap that trilogy up and be done with it. So yeah, Kalen's Tale expands the story, it adds to the story, and it continues the story. Book 3, though, does pick up immediately following the last sentence of book 1.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right, and that would explain it, because The Gathering Darkness I have not read yet. So, all right. Well, your latest series, The Summer People, tell us about this.
The Summer People, that came about, that was entirely a dream. I remember in the dream, sitting there, two things. I'll back it up. It was a dream, but the very opening section of that entire story was something that happened to me in real life when I was a little. The dream part of it was, I remember sitting there walking through this dream, walking through tall grass in a wagon trail with woods all around me. And there's like the Renaissance Festival, right? People dressed in costume and they're all got these gypsy style wagons around us. And I remember walking up and talking to someone called the Lady, which was like this lady who was like I don't know, when she spoke, her real musical voice and everything, you know how dreams are. They can be really strange, all this kind of stuff. And she's sitting there, and in this dream, she's sitting there telling me that everything's fine, everything's okay, and just take a look around. I remember looking around in the dream, and the world looked really beyond normal. Like when there's storm clouds above you and the sun breaks down below, and it's got that kind of golden magical radiance that fills up everything.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of what was happening in the dream. And there was a guy who bumped into me in a dream, and he had, if you look at his skin and the light only, you could see what looked almost like scales on his face, the Sibilant, which was the name of even in my dream, was the name of the people. And that's where he found out that they had taken the Summer People, which were the Gypsy people, right? They had actually surrendered their king to stop a war a long time ago, and it was being held by the Sibilant. And the Sibilant was kind of keeping everything under control at that time, which is kind of took a lot of the magic out of the world, took the luster off of it. And that was kind of the whole beginning of that storyline, was like I wanted to develop that whole thing out. But the first chapter actually starts when I was little. Me and my brother and a friend of ours called Festus, we were at a Cub Scout camp in the wintertime, and then we were at a church. I remember the three of us wandered outside. It was snowing really heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And we had wandered out through the woods, and we crossed a couple of streams. You know how kids are, right? We got sticks. We're about there battling imaginary dragons and who knows what else going on. And I remember looking around, darkness was starting to fall, and we were lost. And it snowed so heavy that we couldn't see our footprints. And feeling so super lost. And the three of us, it took us a long time to get back. And by the time the adults were out looking for us, but that's actually the whole first chapter of the book, because that scene has stuck with me my entire life. Because I remember that. I remember the fear I felt.
Oh, wow.
It just seemed to really fit the story very, very well. So that is the first opening chapter, first couple chapters of the Summer People.
And it's interesting because, like, we were just discussing before the show began about talking about fears and how that can drive us. It can keep us away, and it can also drive us to different things. And whether it's putting out a book or talking to somebody or whatever, it's always amazing to me what fear can do, good and bad, in our lives. So I think that's pretty awesome that you were able to collect those feelings that you had and put them into a story for other people to go, oh, you know what, I can relate to this.
Right. Yep. And that's what I've always liked about writing. That it's sometimes what they say, you can slip between the covers of a book and get lost. Become one with the story, and that's the best time when the author can. And I've always amazed me. And I read all these amazing authors, and Jace, you're an amazing author yourself.
Oh, thank you. Checks in the mail, buddy.
That's right. There you go. When you can sit there and read a page, and suddenly you look up and an hour has passed, or a chapter, right? And you don't know where the time's gone because you're so immersed into the writing. And I think that's the greatest compliment that an author can hear is like, man, I read your book and I looked up, and 4 hours later, I should have been doing something, or it's like 2 a.m. now, and I just couldn't put it down. That's the best compliment, I think, more than anything.
Amen. Oh my gosh. Going back into your Summer People, so you've got it's going to be a 3-book series at least. I know you've got a third one coming soon.
Right. I've been playing around. I've always kind of wanted to do it. Here, back when Stephen King released The Green Mile, he kind of went back to something they used to do, I think, early on, like what they call serialized novels. Mm-hmm. Roger Zelazny was a really awesome science fiction author. The world lost a light when he went, when he lost his battle. But he wrote like the Chronicles of Amber, and I just remember that it was like a 9-book series, but they were very short. And so I thought, I've never experimented with that kind of writing before. So I wonder what it'd be like if I put out novels like The Summer People is like 147 pages long, and the book 2 is 152 pages long, and it looks like it's gonna be about either a 4 or 5 book series because it's still being fleshed out. I finished it, but
wow.
As you go back and dig into it again, more and more life fills out. The bones start getting muscle and organs and all that kind of stuff as the monster starts to come to life, if per se. But I've just been experimenting with that serialized novel, and I really like that short cliffhanger type writing novel. So it's my trial. I may never do it again, or we'll see how it works out.
Well, there's a big push right now for a lot of nostalgic feel. People are looking back to the old trade paperbacks. You stick it in your back pocket, the quick reads, the things that you could just pull out and read at a bus stop or whatever. And I mean, this seems like it'd be a really great selection for that if they do start bringing these back.
Yeah, and was it everybody I've read or everybody I've talked to about it who's read it? About 2.5 hours. If you just sit down and read it, you can read the whole thing, the first book, cover to cover, in 2.5 hours.
That's awesome.
Nice, quick read.
Yeah. So, all right. So the first one I know is out because I've got a copy and got you to sign it. Thank you very much.
No problem.
And the second one is out. When does book 3 come out?
Book 3, I'm putting the wraps up on it right now. The cover artwork seems to be complete. I'm hoping to have it out. I'm going to sit there and say probably it's either going to be end of this month or the middle of next month, because these books, they're crazy. Before, like my first book, it took a while to write that, but these books have been about every 45 days for some strange unknown reason. It's just happening. And And so I'm trying to keep to that schedule about every 45 days until the final one comes out, because I don't want to leave anybody hanging. Nobody wants to do a George Martin, even though J.R. Martin, even though it'd be fantastic to have that, right? I mean, we all want that. That's the kind of success we would like to have, but I want to finish it.
Absolutely. Well, at risk of sounding a little cheesy here, I'd say you've definitely got a little muse within yourself that has certainly come out of late, because you have been very prolific, and it's really great to see, buddy.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Where can people find you?
Right now, I just created a new website. It's smusing.com, smusing.com. So if you hit me there, that'll take you to, I got a blog site that you can shoot off of from there. And it also has my Facebook and all my social media links. And I'd love for people to visit, leave comments.
Fantastic. Yes. And I will make sure and have links to all this in the show notes. So everybody make sure you click those links and follow him along, because it's fantastic stuff. There we go.
I appreciate it, man. I thank you.
No problem. Well, hey, this has been a blast. I love getting to chat with you whenever we can, and hopefully coming up here in June, we'll get you over at the Writers of Warrensburg event, and we'll both be sitting down with new books again. That would be really awesome.
Yes, that would be amazing. And
Well,
it's always wonderful talking to you, Jason. I mean, what you're doing here is fantastic. You're giving people an opportunity to sit there and to hear from the authors themselves, and it's just really cool. It takes somebody who seems far away and faceless and puts a face and a voice to them. So it's great what you're doing.
well, thank you so much. So it means a lot to me. And even if nobody was listening, I'd still be doing this just for myself. So,
Awesome.
all right. Well, hey, I'm going to step aside and hand the floor over to my friend SM Muse with The Summer People.
All right, to some people, I'm going to be reading a section from chapter 3. And at this point, like I said before, my hero of my story, Jake, has been lost in the woods. He's run across a couple of twins named Ash and Eli, mysterious strangers. And in all this, they're in the middle of the woods. It's late at night. They're lost. They can't find their way back because it's snowing so heavily. And so they're trying to figure a way out. They're trying to figure a way to get back home again. So that's where chapter 3 kind of picks up. And here we go. This is it. I still think it's best we wait the storm out here, Eli added. 1, we're pretty much out of the wind. And 2, the snow finally seems to be tapering off. And it's a whole lot darker now than it was before. I think the more we wander around, the more lost we become. Jake agreed. They had been walking for quite some time, and they still hadn't crossed that second stream yet, which told Jake that they were probably walking in circles still, which means we're still just as lost, if not more so, than before, he murmured. At his words, alarm flared in Ash's eyes. Seeing this caused him to swallow and swear to keep his opinions to himself in the future. After all, she was just a little girl and afraid enough for the 3 of them. Tears began threatening at the corners of his eyes. The more he thought about their situation, the less hopeful it seemed they would ever find their way home, at least until the sun rose in the morning. But that would mean sleeping outside in the middle of a Montana winter with no blankets and no fire, nothing to keep them warm. It was already so cold he could barely feel his toes, and Ash and Eli were surely just as cold, if not more so. He was about to say more when a sudden reflection caught his eye. Something was moving off to his left, something close to the ground, something completely silent. His mind immediately went back to the wolves howling. What if the pack had found them somehow? What if they were already surrounded? He clapped his hand across Ash and Eli's mouths, fear running rampant, his stomach in a knot. Shush, he hissed. Something is out there. He could barely stand it, he was so scared. The beating in his chest so strong, so loud, it was deafening. Ash desperately looked around before burying her face in her brother's coat. Could it be the Sibilant, she whispered? Have they found us already? Sibbo, what? Jake wondered. In response to Ash's words, Eli looked afraid, but defiant as well. He seemed ready to fight or flee, whichever opportunity presented itself first. As for Jake, he was just plain afraid and would do anything to wake up and realize this was just some bad dream he was having. But he was already awake, and this wasn't a dream. On top of that, He hadn't a clue as to who this or what this sibilant was that Ash was mentioned, only that it made her and Eli very afraid. And if they were afraid, he was about to question more when there it was again, a light, a movement, just out of the corner of his eye. Ash immediately grabbed his hand as if she'd seen it too. When he looked in that direction, though, he saw nothing, only darkness. "What the heck?" he muttered. He was about to motion to Eli to look in that direction when all of a sudden, "Fairy fire," breathed Eli. "What?" "Ignatius Fadius, one of the Twyla Twag." Only this time, Eli wasn't talking to him, but to himself, and he was staring off into the night, off to the right. Sure enough, by following his line of sight, Jake caught sight of what appeared to be a flicker of light dancing under the trees and in between the snowflakes. As soon as his eyes began to focus in on the spot, however, it would vanish. So, not wolves after all, but something else entirely. "How do you know what it is?" he asked. Eli immediately shushed him, one fingertip over his lips. "Okay," he thought. "Then how do you know what it is?" he whispered. At this point, Eli turned around to face him, a look of, "Really? I just asked you to be quiet, and your only answer is to whisper the same question again?" In return, he answered Eli's look with one of his own. "One way or another, I want to know," he said. He could be just as stubborn when he wanted to be. In response, Eli started to turn away, thought twice about it, then leaned in close. "Dad used to tell us stories about them," he began, fingers gripping his sister's left shoulder. "The rest I looked up on the internet." Jake was about to say more, question Eli further, when he realized Ash was still holding his hand. It wasn't uncomfortable at all to be this close to a girl, so he squeezed her hand back. In response, she smiled, her eyes never leaving his face. Then, the fire was among them.
All right, I don't know about you, but I am curling up with this book tonight. I need to find out what's going to happen next, because that was thrilling. That was SM Muse reading a sample chapter from The Summer People, Book 1. It is available right now. Book 2 is already out as well. Book 3 is coming soon. Don't forget to check out the links for Mr. Muse, his website. Follow him, and you can also find the links for all of our friends and sponsors of the show. Don't forget to also check out the show on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe there or on iTunes, so that way each week you don't miss out when we come back with a new author, a new book, and a new sample chapter. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.